What's up, Craig? How are you, buddy? It'd be fun. We're gonna learn some cool stuff. I learned a bunch of stuff in the research for doing this too, so actually it was very beneficial about the workings of these things. I'm encyclopositivity is the way I gotta go. Plus, there's so much just misinformation about how these things work and everything about them. It's just it's crazy. Like people selling prompts for dollar, like that matters. Like it's just squash that all. Let's run through and figure this stuff out. You know, let's ask the thing what it is, and then it'll tell you it isn't a thing. Okay, so let's jump into this guy. On the dot now. There's three major LLMs that we have right now. Okay, you probably are familiar with ChatGPT, 3.5, 4, if you already have your API key, if you've already paid for it. There's two that you may not run into too often. You have GPT, and then you have Claude, which is Anthropic. Actually, Amazon just inserted $4 billion into these guys, so pay attention. And then you have Bard, which is Google's entry. Now you also have Llama and Facebook's open source and a bunch of other stuff. Okay, that doesn't matter. These are the three that you're gonna use. These are the three that you should, in my opinion, be using every time. Never run any prompt through one and just trust it, because you don't understand probably how it's working. So if you can have different inputs and just get an idea of the level of creativity of each one of these, it'll help. So let's run what these are. All right. So first, let's talk about semantic. Okay. First of all, you're going to have to kind of understand natural language processing a little bit. You're going to have to understand how these things work. And let's just run down that real fast. Okay. So basically what happens is humans have context brains. So when you are speaking to me and I say the word jaguar, for instance, right? Immediately inside of your brain, there's two different paths that happen. You have an English sports car and you have a cat, right? Now, if you know me, you know I have 10 cats and I don't drive an English sports car. So immediately that context is, okay, he's talking about a cat. He lives in Texas. Maybe he's got a Jaguar now. Definitely a possibility. The thing that is critical to understand about that, though, is until you have either gotten an input from me or a previous experience with me, you have no idea in context if I'm speaking about a cat or a car, unless you have the ability to look around those words and to pull context for it. So if I start to say the word jaguar and then I start to use the word like leash or walk or attack or eat, okay, he's talking about a cat. Let me just remove anything that has to do with a car, because that would just be confusing to me, and I'm just going to work on the context of a cat. That's semantic learning. That is what Claude and GPT do. Okay. Now, Claude has 1.7 or 3.7 billion instances of learning of if this then that, basically. Like, they've billions and billions. Okay, so it has a semantic connection to billions, a neural network of billions. That's dope. GPT is trillions, 100 trillion, like order of magnitude beyond you could ever imagine the difference. Like, there's just never, there's no difference. There's no explaining the difference between these two. Like, one is, they're both large numbers, so it doesn't really matter, but it's just a ridiculous more amount, which gives GPT the ability to wander a lot more, gives GPT the ability to be creative, gives GPT the ability to handle multimodality, meaning you can give it multiple inputs because it has so much more training data. So you can give it a YouTube video, you could give it a image, and it can actually read that just because of the sheer amount of data that it's been trained on. Okay, the only reason that Anthropic isn't in the same level is because it's newer, and it just hasn't been doing this since 2015, where GPT has been being trained since 2015. So that's why GPT feels a little bit more like human, a little bit more chaos, a little bit more random, because there's 96 more trillion rules, the 96 more trillion weights, more variables in GPT than there is in Claude. And then now you throw in Bard, and Bard is not a semantic engine. Bard is a answer to a question using a random seed. So if you go to Bard and you say, write me a poem. All right, let's just do this. Write me a poem about a cat. Okay, I'm gonna write you a poem about a cat. Now, the thing you have to understand about Bard and about Claude, these are both designed to be assistants. They're both designed to be conversational assistants that help you. They are meant to take inputs, identify the best output to answer that input as an assistant. GPT is not. GPT is trained and a mathematical statistical probability on its trillions, hundreds of trillions of inputs to determine the best mathematical equation above a certain percentage that you can change that says this is going to answer the question. Okay, so let's look at Bard. You write a poem about a cat. Great, here's a poem about a cat. Now, here's the key. Bard uses seeds. Okay, what does that mean? That means that there's actually a seed number for this. So you can ask it, what's the seed number for future use? What does that mean? So it'll allow you to come in and say, the seed number for this is 11418691847 Okay. Every time you use that seed number, it's this agent. Hey, what's up? Every time you use this seed, this is this agent. So if you want to refer to this agent, if you have custom instructions and you have a prompt that you've really worked on and you've built ethos, if you've built the ability to go in and say, you know, you're a 42-year-old dude with 10 cats and tattoos, and you live in Florida to Texas, all this, right? You've built this one shot or this zero shot. You can save that seed. So you can just say, okay, this is the seed. Now you can refer to that at all times. And you can always go back and say, using seed number, write me a poem about a dog. Okay. Now, this is the same agent writing a poem about a dog that it went back and wrote about a cat. You can self-referential go back, owe it to the dog. Now you see, owe it to the dog, owe it to the cat. Dope, right? This allows you to go in and say, hey, only use this number when you're rolling the dice, because this is how this works. This isn't semantic language analysis. This isn't doing the thing where it says Jaguar and it builds a network around that. Not at all. This is just literally old school Dungeons and Dragons random number generator that will go through and grab different like random words that are associated with cat, and then we'll build a poem based upon the equation of that random number. So the random number, or the seed number of that is 114 whatever, right? This is the seed number. What that's doing is it's going to Google's database. That's going into basically a SQL or Mongo database for anyone that understands this stuff. It's going and doing a query, and it's saying, what are the words that I know that are associated with cat? And it comes back and it's whatever, these words, right? Pause, velvet, mystery, blah, blah, blah. Fine. Let's just ask it, right? Like, I don't need to explain any of this. Like, you can always just ask this thing. So, boom, right there. It'll just tell you. Seed number is randomly generated numbers used to initiate an LLM. Large language then uses the seed number to generate text. Logic behind the seed is that it ensures the language model generates different text each time it's used. This is because the seed number is unique and is not used by any other model. In the case of the poem about the dog, language model used the seed number to generate a poem that is similar to the poem about the cat. However, the language model also made some changes to the poem to make it more specific to dogs. For example, the language model changed the line, "Oh, furry friend with velvet paws," to "Oh, furry friend with wagging tail." The language model also added the line, "You love to play and fetch and run," to the poem about the dog. Okay, so it looks at what it used to do, what it did before, and then it says, all right, cool, on this, let me do this. Very simple. What's dope about this, though, you can come in here and it will give you different versions of the seed. So it only grabs a certain percentage, and that's called top P value. Okay, so it says, I have 1,000 words that are about a cat, and the bottom 10% are like antithesis, they're antagonists, they're not cats, right? They're maybe they're synonyms, but they're just not there, like lion and whatever, right? And then you have all the way up to the top, which are 100% match, which is nimbly, pimbly, milk, saucer, kitten, blah, 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 all these words. It grabs a certain amount of those words, and then it starts building off of that. Okay, so it's not grabbing nearest semantic. It's just literally rolling a dice, grabbing random words that hit a certain percentage, going through, looking at what do you ask for? A poem. Okay, what words go with poem and what words go with cat? Roll the dice. Here's the thing. Okay, roll the dice again. Here's another version that are in the top 5%. So if you have 1,000 words, then you have 50 words. Within those 50 words, there's that seed that says, I'm going to use one of these. So within this seed, you're going to have that variability of 50 words. Whereas if you give just write me a poem about a cat, you have a variability of 1,000. Does that make sense? So you're bringing this down to saying, I only want to use this. I only want Bard to ever use this seed. And if you create a seed that you really enjoy, then you can have a conversation with this thing because it's designed to be that, right? Claude is going to be the similar way. So why do you use Bard? This is the reason. First of all, you can control the seed. Second of all is the extensions. So you can go in here and you can real-time maps, YouTube, and this is the big one. I'm flying through this. Hit me up afterwards and I'll go through this in detail, but I got 45 minutes to go through all this. It's a lot of shit. You can run this directly in, if you don't have labs, you can run this directly in Workspace. If you have labs right now, that's irrelevant because it lives there, but you literally can just have any document, any CSV, anything, and have Bard go through and do NLP, natural language processing, segmentation analysis, anything you want in direct, no upload in your ecosystem right now. Okay, that's pretty dope. So if you're in the Google ecosystem, this thing already knows everything about it. So like, let's say you want to automate something in Google and you're like, I know I could do this, or maybe I think I can do this, but I'm not sure. Just ask Bard. It'll just literally give you the code. You can copy and paste. It's that easy. It's in between Claude and GPT. GPT has zero like assistant to it. It has no like weights and measures to try to give you help. It's not meant to give you help. It's just meant to give you a mathematical probable statement that equals the highest probability to the left-hand side that you gave it. So what is the capital of France is always going to equal Paris. Okay, because sure, the capital of France may not have always been Paris. The capital of France may have been transitionary. And if you were trying to write a paper on the history of France, maybe Marseille was the capital of France at one point. I don't know. Those are just the two cities I know in France. So that may be true or maybe not, right? Hey, Chef. So what you do is you look at Bard as the in-between between Claude, which is an assistant. It's built by Anthropic to be helpful and give you answers and to discern what you actually want, and GPT, which doesn't give a shit what you want. It just doesn't give you the answer within its own realm. Okay, so this is the middle of the road. If you want like a semi-helpful assistant, but that also can give you a creative answer, that's Bard. If you want unlimited creativity and you want to do things that are just multimodal with unlimited like insanity, that's GPT. The best way I could explain this, really, honestly, that just came to me, GPT is like Android. Okay, you can do absolutely anything that you can do on an Android and an iPhone. It's just kind of harder, kind of more of a pain in the ass. You got to build a little bit, but you have unlimited ability. You can do whatever you want. Like you can root the thing, you can it's just insane, right? But an iPhone, it's vertically integrated to be helpful for you. So you're a little bit limited. Like you're a little bit restricted in what you can do, what you can add, what you can mess with, but that's by design. So that's Claude. And this is why I say users, like anyone that asks me, what should I do? Like, I don't play the should or shouldn't game, but if you don't have any experience in LLM, you don't know how to prompt, you don't know what prompt engineering is, you have no idea what's going on, Claude is your answer. Because this thing is as close to an AI assistant that we have. This is like an actually helpful paperclip from Microsoft back in the day if you're old, like I am, okay? This thing will allow you to real-time upload files, right? This thing will real-time allow you text, CSV, PDFs. You can upload a PDF and immediately have it come back and give you Cliff Notes. You can upload 50 PDFs or 5, whatever. You can upload 5 PDFs and say, what are the relations between these PDFs? You can upload 5 different CSVs that are trained as different agents and say, this is a nearest neighbor, and this is a segmentation, and this is a emotional segmentation of the same data. And you can upload all of those and it can come back and say, oh, cool, I now know everything about this data, and you can query it directly here. Okay. Now, the thing is, this is super, super restricted when it comes to like anything outside of the realm of like PG-13. Like you can't really get this thing off the rails, and that's by design. Like this is designed to be helpful. Like you can just anytime you have questions, just ask it what its core mission is. Ask like the core prerogative, what is it that you want to do? Core mission created by Anthropic to be helpful, harmless, and honest. All right, so come to GPT. It's crazy, right? It's just dissertation. As an AI developed by OpenAI, my core mission is to assist user by providing information, answering questions, generating tests, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you talk. Bard. What is your core mission? Assist users with the question. Look at this. Like, this is why Claude is so much better. So much better. Like, what's your core mission? I was created to be helpful, harmless, and honest. Dope. Bard, what is your mission? Words. ChatGPT, what is your mission? Words. Right? So explain to me what you are in one sentence. I'm an artificial intelligence language designed to understand general human text space and input. Perfect. Right? Great. So why do you use GPT? You use GPT because you want to be able to modify it. You want to be able to go outside the box. You want to be able to do things like create like a human would. You want to be able to not have a conversation with these things. This thing solves a problem. You want to be able to actually go in and take your idea and make it into fruition in reality. That's GPT. That's what you're going to do. That's what 100 trillion points of data are going to do for you. You can say, don't worry about listening to me. Don't worry about listening to anyone else. All right. It's 2023. We have these things. If you take nothing away from this, ask these things. Like, The only way that I have any idea of what these things were is because I interacted with them. They didn't, these things are built on 20, 30-year-old technology, right? Stacked NLPs is not something new. The ability for them to use basic quantum computing and go through and do all of this new stuff, that's what's new. So going in and just saying, why do I care if you have 100 trillion versus 5 billion or 30 billion? Why do I care? What does it matter? Why do I care how many stars are in the solar system? There's unlimited, right? This is why. It'll just tell you, because it'll say the more I have, the more I can be trained. They want unlimited amount of data. So you come in here and you say, great, this is like the Library of Alexandria. This is literally like the unlimited amount of technology information that you can have from here, but you have to know how to get it. You have to know how to ask the question. You have to know how to go to the library and look at the Dewey Decimal System and understand where the book is and then read the book. That's what this is. This is a library. This is a public library that has the information of the entirety of the human race in it. So if you don't know how to query that, if you don't know how to actually look up what you want, then it's never going to be able to teach you, because you can't ask it the question for it to explain back to you. And you're just going to get in this feedback loop where you're not actually smarter and you just know different things to say. So that's why I say go to Claude, because Claude will actually explain it to you. Okay, so you ask it the same question. And now it's very different answer. Instead of coming back and giving you like the statistical answer where you're getting like learning from examples, that doesn't really help you. Like what you'll find from GPT is, unless you already kind of know the answer, unless you kind of already like know where you're going, then you're not going to be able to kind of pull on the threads, because it's not really going to use words you don't define. So like learning from examples, if you already understand what a large language model is and you understand what natural language processing is, you're like, it doesn't really help me, right? But in Claude, breadth of knowledge is way different, right? So it's going to tell you like, I know more, I'm more precise, I reduce bias, I handling edge cases, which is a rare case. It's actually an edge case, but they change it because nobody understands a rare case, like edge case versus rare. Claude wants to help you. So now let's ask Bard. I mean, I'm asking it in different ways, but it just doesn't matter. You ask Bard, and now it's in between those two. It's in between. It doesn't give you superlatives and it doesn't try to explain it, but it just gives you the information in like a kind of a helpful way. But what's dope about it is because it's seed built and it's not relationship built, you can just run it a different way. So you come in here and say, well, here, this is the one I like. And then you like this. What's the seed number? Draft 2. Again, there you go. So every time it comes and you say, oh, I like this draft, remove it. Get rid of the number 1 and number 2. Why do you need that? Just get rid of the one you don't like, right? Goldilocks that shit. And then boom, now this is it. Good. Now you have the seed. You can forever write that seed down and always refer back. Okay. That's what's super dope about this. You can also use images here too. So you can just upload an image and ask questions about it in Bard. Not as good as GPT, obviously, because 96 million trillion different inputs. So if you're going to use image input, GPT all day long. Claude is going to be the one I say to start with, though. So you go there and you ask it a question. It'll give you an answer in such a way that it'll help you learn. And then from there, you can start asking more questions. What to take away from this is these things are a mirror. It's all they are. They only can reflect what you can ask it. They don't know anything. They seem like they know everything. They seem like they have answers to everything. They don't have answers to anything. They don't know anything. They don't even understand the concept of a question. Like, the problem here, and I'm going to get just existential for a second. There's two problems. One, they forcefully type back. Okay, so like if I ask you a question, right? Look. So like, um, user interface design. You ask it, why are you typing? Right? Not anyone really is talking about this but me, and I don't know why. This is the biggest dark pattern in AI. This is literally like, I don't understand. It types, right? Bard doesn't. Bard is different. Bard, so Bard runs it. You see this? This is different. Bard runs it in the background. It's saying, hey, this thing is running. This is an algorithm running. This is a program running. This is a load screen. This is what everybody is used to in the history of everything. When you interact with something and an algorithm or a computer is working in the background, you get this little load spinning thing that you get annoyed by because it's whatever, but you know a computer is dealing with this. This is a pattern that humans have. Okay, right or wrong, it doesn't matter. This is what it's there for. ChatGPT doesn't. That is a dark pattern. That makes someone who doesn't understand what this is, someone who's my 75-year-old mother typing to this thing, convince her that's not another person typing behind it on that UI choice because it wants it to be more conversational. It wants it to be natural and easier. Bullshit. You are doing that because you want humans to be on this longer. And it builds a parasocial relationship with the thing behind this, which isn't even a thing, that allows someone who doesn't understand this to connect with it emotionally because it's responding in such a way. Garbage. I hate that about all of this. So if I could take away anything from Bard that I could add to the other two is make sure, even while they say I'm an AI and I don't have feelings, what you say and what you do are different. Because adding that little thing, even on the phone, is haptic feedback like somebody is typing. It's bad. I don't like it. Anyways. So what do you do to make this yours? You're only going to do one. You only want to do one. First of all, it's a mistake. That's a mistake. Here's why. Because you can reverse engineer these things. So you can come here and you can get something from Claude and you can say, rate me an emotionally charged blog post about the benefits and factors of using AI in creating blog posts. Position it from the of the topics, right? Whatever. This is a shitty prompt, but it's doesn't matter. So you can take this and you can grab this prompt and then take the output of this prompt and then send it into another LLM and then reverse engineer how you would get to that prompt from that LLM. So if you're getting outputs from Google or from Anthropic or from GPT that you're liking or disliking, use the other tools as checks and balances to reverse engineer how you would get that content. So you don't necessarily have to send the prompt to get the output. You can send the output and ask it what the prompt is. Think about that. It's a math equation. If you have the output, you can solve the input. If you have the input, you can solve the output. If you look at it like an answer to a question, then you're looking at it wrong because you can't answer a question that's not asked. But you can reverse engineer the beginning input of an equation if you have the output and you know generally what the transformer is. If you look at it like that, it's completely different. So now we come here and we say this. We say, let's grab this. And we'll come over to GPT and we say, this is an output from the LLM Claude. I would like you to prompt developer. Turn prompt second. So here's one thing that you have to do. One thing that a lot of people use this whole thing, take a step back and breathe. And like, first of all, it doesn't breathe. It doesn't even understand what air is. But you can have it do this. You say, recursively solve this. You can just add this to every single one if you want, but it gets kind of weird. But recursively solve this by asking yourself if this is the best prompt. Work step by step logically and explain your process. What this does is it forces this thing to actually go through and identify each step of the problem versus looking at the entire thing. So it will up your input level, but what we'll do is it will actually chunk this out into way different than if you just put it. So let's see what this says. Now it's going to go through and it's going to say, oh, okay, cool. This is what it did. This is how I read it. This is what we're going to do. Right? Huh. So interesting. What did that tell us? That told us to build this prompt. Why do we care about that? Because if we don't understand how to get the outputs from the inputs that we give, but we have outputs that we already have, and we say these are good outputs, take those outputs, send them in, say, hey, how do I make this? All right? Don't worry about how to make it to the output, because that may never happen. That may like, fine, you give a million monkeys a typewriter, they're going to be Shakespeare, but do you have a million monkeys? Do you have a million typewriters? No. You do have blog posts that you've written. You do have like really good LinkedIn posts. You do have something that you look at and you're proud of and you're like, this really represents me. And if you don't, then what are you doing on AI in the first place? Go build some shit. The thing about it is, if you look at it from this thing is going to help me create, maybe, but it's going to just be like every single other person. Doesn't matter which one of these you're using. Doesn't matter if you're going to get the assistant from Claude, the semi-assistant from Bard, or the Android phone explosion of GPT. If you're using these things to just think for you, then you're not thinking. Okay, so existential crisis over. But reverse engineer these things. So let's see what it says. Let's go here and say, ooh, write it. Go in Bard, do the same thing. Iteratively go through. Iteratively take the process and get the output and say, hey, what do I need? What am I even doing here? What do I want? From there, you start pulling on the threads. Start saying, oh, okay, this is how this word and these phrases and this interaction gives me this output. And you can start tweaking your inputs to give your outputs, but you get a starting point, not from your brain, because there's no way you're going to be, I don't know this, no one knows this. You're never going to be able to go into this and prompt to get to the output that you want successfully within the first like 1,000 times. Like, sure. And then anyone that goes and tries to sell you a prompt that's going to be able to have you go through, copy and paste and be like, hey, this works for me. Like, I don't knock any hustles. Good for them for getting their money. But come on. Okay? I don't buy that at all, because that just means you don't understand how this works, and you're solving for an input problem without having an output, and you don't even understand the transformer, so you don't understand the problem. That's dangerous. Don't do that. Yeah. So, cool things about GPT that you can do. Custom instructions. Come here. What do you want to know? Zero shot yourself. Okay? If you're building for yourself, if you're building for a brand, zero shot. Literally explain yourself as best as you can. This is who I am. So if you want something to actually like speak in your voice, there you go. And then from here, do you want usable code? Do you want it in German? Do you want it to ask itself if this is the best version of itself? Do you want it to recursively go through and prompt engineer to give yourself the best prompt? Do you want it to explain the logic of every prompt output that it gives you? Do you want it to whatever you want? Here. Okay. So it's going to be able to, these two things, this is your Android, okay? This is your kernel. This is going to microtrain. Beyond the fact that the API allows you to microtrain, but you're not ready for that. Custom instructions are the key. And then you come up here in GPT, in the new chat, you can add on plugins or DALL-E, advanced data, or Bing. What are these? Bing, obviously, a horrible browser, but you can browse. Advanced data analysis is pretty dope. It'll allow you to run Python directly in here. So if you're watching this, probably not for you, but maybe in the future, learn Python. You can run Python directly in GPT. It's pretty amazing. Plugins is pretty dope. You can come over here. You can go turn on your plugins and data analysis, right? You can find new plugins in here. See, like these are the 3 that I have. Link reader, diagrams, prompt perfect, and AI PDF, which basically allows me to run Mermaid to build out any kind of process map that I want. So like you come here in diagrams, right? And you want to say, build me a process map for all right. So real time, build me a process map for replacing a light bulb with choice points at switch, bird plugged in, success state is light on, fail state is off. So if you're building any sort of flow chart, you're building any sort of process maps, anything like that, this is Mermaid. It's like for that, but it's built right here. So like if you have Lucid Chart or you have Miro or you've taken some of my courses and you're building this directly in Google Sheets, yeah, you don't have to do any of that. You can just tell it real time what you want and it'll, hey, yay, look at that. Switches on. Yeah, good. Burn bolt. No, good. Yay. So there's your process map. You can get as insane as you want. It's fun. Yeah. And then boom, Miro. So yeah, cool stuff. You can now take that and edit out all your process maps. You can take this process map, feed it back in, and start asking questions about it. Like save it as a JPEG, feed it back in, be like, hey, here's a process map. What did I miss? So I'm basically like making myself almost irrelevant with this kind of stuff, but it's fun. So you can come in and we can run DALL-E, and DALL-E will give you an image. So again, this is multimodal because this thing has trillions and trillions. It can actually build you out what this means. And the only reason it can do that is because it's seen a trillion images. It's seen, you know, whatever, maybe 1 million images of a star field. So it just, when you say create an image of a starship battlefield, starship, again, don't judge me for my typing, it will just go and know what this means. And it doesn't know what this means because it knows what it means. It just can go and it can recreate this because it's seen it in the past. And here's your prompt. Okay, take this to Midjourney, take this to Stable Diffusion or Photo or wherever you want. All right, so again, this is like GPT is your Android. It just gives you everything that you want and allows you to go nuts. So if you're gonna do one, I would say do GPT because it gives you the most ability. But I mean, for the amount of money that you're gonna spend on a Claude subscription and a GPT subscription, like, you get both. So what else can you do with GPT? There's all kinds of plugins, there's all kinds of imagery. But the thing that you can do with GPT is more than anything, and this is the last thing I'm gonna talk about GPT, you can share the link out, okay? So what does this mean? I can create a chat and then I can share this chat. I can share this chat out. Well, not this one. What does that mean? That means that I can go and have a URL that is shareable of the text of the interaction of this chat. From that URL, I can then parse that with GPT. So you can get around all of these limits by recursively like referring to each one of these things. So you get a public URL, which is the history of the chat, which is your whatever 40,000 tokens, 50,000 tokens, right? So it's a 500-page chat. Now, you want to reference that chat in the future, but it's after 30 days and, it doesn't have memory. Well, you can save that basically as a RAM state, and then you can parse that with GPT and go back and say, here is a URL, parse that and reference that URL. And really what you're doing is just giving it the chat. You could do that unlimited times. You can just continually waterfall every chat so that you can have as crazy as an existential conversation as you want, that it will remember because it can recursively go back. And the dope thing about that is when it parses the URL, that doesn't include, it's only one input. So it's not the entire, like obviously that would break things. It's not the entirety. It's parsing that website and getting the semantic analysis and building the one-to-one connection of what that actually means to break that out. That's what that's doing without causing you to have to do that. So you just run it back to itself. And you're like, hey, what did you say here? Did you mean that? And then you can go and you can waterfall that forever. Google does the same thing with seed. All right, so let's talk about Bard real quick. Google does the same thing with seed. Google allows you to go through and will allow you to set the seed and always talk to that seed. So for instance, like that cat and that dog, you can always write a poem in that voice with those seeds. It allows you to run extensions, maps, hotels, flights, YouTube, so you can parse videos real time. That, like, let's say that you want to watch a 10-hour Python scripting program, it will break that out and will say, here's what to learn from that. Okay. Bard is built to be like an extension of you, an extension of Google. It's built to be an assistant that actually helps you, but also gives you like factual lookups. So it's like an assistant on top of Google. So that's like Bard. And then you have Claude, which is your conversational. It's built to be what they design as helpful. So if you find it helpful or not, I guess is like the same way if you find the Apple ecosystem good or not. I personally find it restrictive. I personally find the Apple ecosystem is meant for people that don't like to tinker. It's meant for people that just want the most helpful and useful ecosystem that's vertically integrated. And that's great. And that exists. And that's why it's the most popular one, because most people don't want to mess with all this stuff. But if you do, Claude's not the way, because there's a lot of restrictions built in to give balance and helpfulness, right? So yeah, remember that. Like, you could easily go Claude, have the conversation with Claude, Claude will come back and start helping you learn, start helping you grow, start helping you like actually get to a place where you can ask GPT questions, because GPT doesn't give a shit if you know it or not. It's just going to answer it, and it's not going to be helpful or not. It's just going to, the statistical analysis of this word is a success state for this other word that you gave it. And if that word is a word you don't understand, go back to Claude and have Claude explain it to you in such a way that is conversational and helpful. So then you have like the best of both worlds. You have mom and dad. Dad just gives you the info and has whatever, I don't care. Mom is going to sit you down and say, do you understand this? Are you emotionally okay with this? Do you have any problems? Do you really grasp what we're talking about? Or are you just mimicking, and are you like just parroting, right? So GPT is like an instructor and Claude is like a teacher. GPT is Android, Claude is Apple. Bard is in between those two. Like, Bard is like the older brother, right? Sometimes he's going to be kind of a dick and not really explain things. Other things he's going to sit down and make sure that you really understand. Like, it's just in the middle. So yeah, then that's really what it comes down to. If I would not recommend using one of these, use them all, run them all. Like, get outputs from all three of these things and run them as inputs to the other. Build your own network, build your own thing. Because even for me, like, I've been an inordinate amount of time talking, not right, interacting with these math equations, and I still don't know 1% of this. So you have to just get into it. And if you're not willing to get into it, that's fine. Don't use it. You don't need it. You were fine before it. You're not going to get replaced by it. No one else in your industry even is using this in a way that's going to affect you right now. So if you just need to be status quo and you need for this to get to be consumer level, that's okay. You're not going to be left behind, because there's people out there like me who are literally consuming this as like an obsession. And we're going to get to a point where you don't need to understand the transformation process. You don't need to understand how system engineering works to be dope at Zapier, right? You don't need to. There needs to be humans that understand how Zapier works. There needs to be humans who can build Zapier. But there also needs to be humans who don't care about that, but are just fire at Zapier. That's what this is. This is the new no code, low code. This is the new information system processing. So you don't have to get to understand how they work. It's beneficial if you do. You don't need to know how to build them. I don't even know how to build them. But get to understand, hey, I know this is a transformation process, and I know the outputs, and I know the level of inputs that I've got. You only get there by messing with all three of these things. There's very big differences between all three, and you don't want to silo yourself the same way that I don't think you should only build an application for Apple. You should definitely not only use the LLM that is built to help you, because sometimes you don't need to be helped. Sometimes you just need the answer to something, and that will allow you to ask a different question. If you don't have that, if you don't have someone saying, hey, you're at level 1, these are the words for level 2, for you to be able to go and ask what level 2 is. If they're like, oh man, you're not ready for level 2, I'm only gonna help you maximize level 1. That doesn't help anybody. But at the same time, being like, here's level 9, doesn't help anybody at all either, because they're using words that you just don't even have 8 levels of definition before that. So that's like the difference between all of these, right? And then Claude is the coddling one. Google is the one that's kind of in the middle that will give you an answer but try to help you. And that's based upon random numbers. And then GPT is the one that does nothing. They're just going to give you the answer. Level 100 or level 2, whatever the statistical analysis is. If you ask a level 8 question, it's probably going to give you a level 8 answer. It's not going to give you like a pedantic answer or one that makes you feel better or understand it. It's just going to be, if you give it computational theoretical physics questions, it's going to give you computational theoretical physics answers. And if you don't know what that's supposed to mean, you're in trouble, right? So don't ask GPT answers that you don't understand, because you're going to just parrot those answers. And if you don't understand it, you could be competently incorrect, walking around talking about things you just don't understand. Use Claude for that. Ask Claude questions like, hey, I don't understand this. Explain this concept. And then it'll, based on your context, will give you questions and answers that will help you grow, like a teacher would. They'd be like, oh, well, how do you feel? Like, how do you recognize this? How do you see it? And then it will be like, oh, well, you're smart. Don't think you're not. Like, it makes you feel better. That's great. GPT doesn't do that, right? So, yeah, if you're unsure and you just need an explanation of like a concept, Claude. If you need a little bit of an explanation of a concept, but to help you level up and get to level 2 from level 1, I would say start with Bard, because that's really going to be like what it's for. And if you just want to know what level 100 is, and it's like somebody, you just heard somebody use a word, and you're like, what the fuck? And you just go to GPT, because GPT is unlimited. It's gonna have you do whatever you want. Yeah. So that's my spiel on this. 45 minutes in. Anyone have any questions? I know I went high level. If you want to learn how to prompt engineer, if you want to learn like what does this actually mean, how to control your inputs, automatetowin.com. It's $50. Like, you will walk away understanding how to interact with these things to a point where you will be confident that the outputs are reliable, repeatable, and relatable. Without that, you don't got nothing. You got a toy, and it's great, and it's fun. But if you can't run the same experiment and get the same output, you're not running experiments. And this is all this is. This is an experiment in math and statistics. So you have to keep that in mind. If you can't replicate this, if every time you run it, it's something different, what are you doing? You're just introducing chaos into the system. So either learn prompt engineering, only use Claude if you want, which I think is a really bad idea, or use all three, right? So yeah, that's it for me. I don't know if you guys have any questions. Leave it. No? Cool. All right. Well, 15 minutes back to your life. Thanks for joining me. Hopefully you learned something. Please don't buy prompts from people. Please don't copy and paste prompts, because even if they work the first time, you don't know why. You don't understand what it is. It's a very dangerous trap. So don't take shortcuts. Learn it. Figure it out. Learn prompt engineering. Don't learn it from me. Don't care who you learn it for. Learn it from somebody. Okay? With that, be well. Hope you have a great day. We'll talk soon.